work that symbolizes the very spirit of Dwight D. Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace speech, reinforcing the peaceful use of atomic energy and thereby making the world a more robust and safer place. And who knew that the president himself was an event planner on top of all of his other great activities. We are especially privileged again to have the granddaughter of President Eisenhower here to present the awards. So Susan, at this point, I turn the podium over to you.
Thank you very much, Don. I have many wonderful things to say about our honorees, so maybe I'll be given a chance to say something about that later after they receive their awards. But it's a great honor for me to represent my grandfather on this occasion and for the award of the Dwight D. Eisenhower Award. As I referenced in my earlier comments, in 1953, on December 8th, an Atoms for Peace speech was given at the United Nations. There are only 60 countries that were at the United Nations in those days, but it was an effort to bring together many elements of a larger strategy. In fact, one of the reasons for creating the dawn of the nuclear age was to actually bring the Soviet Union back to the bargaining table and to create a platform around which they could discuss the future, the nuclear future, in positive terms instead of just negative ones. Also at the same time, there was a feeling that the colonial world was certainly coming to an end, and the free world was, of course, in competition with the Soviet bloc, and in terms of winning the hearts and minds of the colonial, the powers that were leaving colonial rule. This was a very important thing that the administration didn't want emerging countries to feel that they were going to be locked out of cooperating on nuclear issues. And also, there was a strong feeling that the American public was beginning to understand exactly the costs involved in this new nuclear industry. Not only I should say, in the nuclear industry around the building of the bomb. The Soviet Union, let's not forget, had just tested the hydrogen bomb, broke our monopoly on that in August of 1953. So the president put out the word to his staff to write a speech that he could see. That was a tough job because he was once a speechwriter himself for General Douglas MacArthur. In any case, the speech arrived on his desk, and the draft, according to Eisenhower, left listeners with only a new sense of terror, which was, of course, not what he was aiming for at all. And so he went back to the drawing board and put his own pen to paper. Not only was he an event planner, but apparently a speechwriter as well, his own. And wrote, I think, what remains one of the truly remarkable speeches of that era. In any case, one of the facts that he raised in that speech, which I think is really quite remarkable when you think about it, that at that time, in 1953, already atomic weapons stockpiles were the total equivalent of all the bombs and all the shells that came from every plane and every gun in every theater of war throughout all the years of World War II. So the exponential firepower, you might say, that was already part of the global scene was a big impetus for finding a way to bring a positive direction to nuclear science. As a result of the Atoms for Peace speech, and many of you here know this, it was the inspiration for the founding of the International Atomic Energy Agency, for the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty, and for creating an international framework for the International Fuel Bank, which we now have. That took a little more than 50 years, but it's a major achievement. As Dwight Eisenhower said, it is with the book of history, not with isolated pages, that the United States will ever wish to be identified. And so I think that this award is particularly appropriate, first of all, because of the wonderful honorees today, but because there is an acknowledgement that international security has always gone hand in hand with commercial industry in the nuclear space. I personally think that this is something to be proud of, and I think it is exemplified by the fact that only last year we were fortunate enough to use in reactor fuel 20,000 warheads, Soviet-era warheads that were targeted on this country, blended down and turned into electricity that was used to power 1 in every 10 light bulbs in the United States of America. Another great story to tell the public. And so this dual side of the atom has always been with us. I think personally that nuclear energy is indispensable for managing non-proliferation issues that we face today. And that's why it is a particular honor today that we welcome our honorees with the Dwight D. Eisenhower Award. Maybe you'd like to. Oh, shall I? Okay. Well, I have to say that it is an enormous pleasure for me that two people who I've admired enormously over the years, Secretary George Shultz and Dr. Sidney Drell, will be our honorees today. Both of them have played legendary roles in working towards making the world a safer place. And it seems to me that they are both ideal for receiving this award because of not only their own distinguished careers, but also their capacity to collaborate. Recently, both senior fellows, distinguished fellows at the Hoover Institution, they produced a paper called The Nuclear Enterprise, High Consequence Accidents, How to Enhance Safety and Minimize Risks in Nuclear Weapons and Reactors. This collaboration has gone on for many years, and Secretary of State George Shultz and Dr. Drell, who advised our governments on nuclear issues, represent the best that this industry produces, which is the excellence in diplomacy and in technical matters. It's a particular honor for me to bestow this award on both of them, longtime friends and colleagues.
Really special for me, particularly coming from Susan, but I served in the Eisenhower administration, and well, I was as his Council of Economic Advisor, so I was in the White House complex, but I had an office with a window that looked out on the south lawn of the White House, so that was pretty good. But I had two interesting little experiences with President Eisenhower, which showed his capacity to think big and think little, and exercise wisdom. In those days, we had a plan for what to do in case of a big emergency, and the government would spread out. You'd go here, I'd go there, and so the whole thing wouldn't be wiped out at once. It was not particularly popular with us economists, but we did what we were told. One day we were all called into a big lecture hall, and who should appear but President Eisenhower. And he said, "We have been practicing a plan, but you should realize that if something happens, the plan is worthless. You do not follow the plan, you look at the reality. And reality is never quite what you think it might be. So you have to make adjustments. Maybe it's a way of using the plan as a base, but nevertheless, when there is a crisis, always look at the reality and see what's new and how you need to react to that. That's big wisdom. Think of all the ways in which that applies. Then on another occasion, I had been nominated to be Secretary of Labor, and I was told that if I wanted an appointment with President Eisenhower, he would see me. So of course I immediately sought one, and I go over to Walter Reed Hospital where he was there in bed. He died some months later. But he's very genial, and we started talking about the Department of Labor. I was astonished at how much he knew about it. I thought it would be some little backwater he hardly knew existed, but he knew a lot about it. Then we started talking about golf. It turned out we played a few of the same courses and remembered holes, and we were having a great time. Then a doctor comes in and says, time to go. All of a sudden, this genial man gets very serious. He wags his finger in front of me like this. He says, young man, you're going to come down here and you're going to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're going to think you're doing your job. Let me tell you something. If that's what you do, there is no way you'll do your job. You'll just burn yourself out. He said, I can see you like golf as much as I do. You ought to get on some golf course at least twice a week. Get your mind on something else. You won't be able to do your job. Press will get on you about it. Don't worry about it. They don't have any idea what it takes to do these jobs. Then I noticed at a gridiron dinner when he was first president, reporters were seeking his views on all kinds of things, and they knew he liked to play golf, so they were interviewing his caddy in the skit. And so one reporter says, well, how's he stand on antitrust? And the answer was, there ain't an ounce of anti in that man. He trusts everybody. But I think it was part of the Eisenhower magic that he trusted people. He trusted the American people, and we all trusted him. And he deserved to be trusted because there are all kinds of examples you can point to where he stood up for the right thing for America, in spite of the fact that sometimes he could have advanced himself a little bit if he'd done something else. And he was just a beautiful man. We're so lucky to have had him as president. He's a model. And so I feel especially honored to receive this award, particularly from somebody by the name of Eisenhower. Susan, and I know Susan, so thank you, Susan.
To receive this reward from this society in the name of a man I admire so much as President Eisenhower, and together with another man I have the privilege of knowing as a friend and working with, George Shultz, all of whom have given so much to this country. It was remarked earlier this morning that Eisenhower's success came largely because he saw things were done. I had just gotten involved in government work as a physicist near the end of the Eisenhower administration, and I saw how he pushed along the important issues that Atoms for Peace made possible in that wonderful speech of his. He was responsible, and he sought open skies because he knew how important it was to know what you were up against in a Cold War that was developing at that time. And he saw to it that an open skies treaty that gave us a chance to find out by open skies flying over each other's country how we could penetrate the Iron Curtain. And although that treaty didn't come into effect for many years, I do know and saw President Eisenhower, working to make sure that at the earliest possible time, driving advisors like George Kostiakowski, Robbie, George Killian, then president of MIT, driving them hard, and also Din Land of Polaroid, to get some satellites up there, photo reconnaissance satellites. And if you read the history of how we opened how we penetrated the Iron Curtain and how important it was to this country, you'll realize what a major role Eisenhower played in all that. So I thank the society for giving me this honor and for being able to very briefly associate my name with President Eisenhower. Thank you.
Let me say again how magnificent it is that the American Nuclear Society has established this award, and that Secretary Shultz and Dr. Drell are the first recipients. They were far too modest in terms of their own contribution that won them this prize. I have to say that the world is a very much safer place because we had both Secretary of Shultz at the helm as Secretary of State during the last years of the Cold War, and then we had Dr. Sidney Drell, who was doing very complicated, sophisticated analysis on nuclear weapons policy and on advising the governments at critical moments when it really mattered. And so thank you both for accepting this award, and for the American Nuclear Society, which is also a legatee of the Atoms for Peace speech, for establishing this award. Thank you.